Welcome to the BEERA Shop podcast. Today we are going to be talking about a digital economy. Has Uganda actually digitized, or do we still need a little bit more support, either from the government or coming together as business organizations? Today we have a special guest with us. He is the Executive Director of the Federation of Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises, and he's going to be walking us through this journey of what does it take for you as a business owner to be able to absorb or adopt digital tools for your business to advance and to actually see more money coming into your pocket. So welcome, John Walugembe.
Thank you,
Yes.
Sophie, for having me here.
Sure. So at the moment, we are seeing that a lot of businesses have transformed. Before, people used to walk into a shop, or if they needed a service, they could go to a specific location and ask for it. But the tide has turned significantly post-COVID, where you can go online, purchase something, even purchase a service, and it would seem that that's the way that it is going. Can you talk to us a little bit about how far this is going? What is the scope of small and medium-sized enterprises really looking towards this kind of model for sale?
Well, I think after COVID-19, there has definitely been a shift in terms of digital transformation by businesses. We see that very many businesses are reliant more and more on digital tools. We see more businesses adopting online payment platforms, e-commerce platforms, among others. That said, if you look at the broader picture, the level of digital adoption in Uganda is still quite low among MSMEs. The Federation did an assessment, and we found that around, for instance, only about 23% of our members that actively use a smartphone. And when we're talking about digital transformation for MSMEs, we're pretty much talking about the smartphone. Now, there are many reasons as to why that is the case, and I would highlight a couple of challenges that ensure that we still have that problem. One is digital illiteracy. Many MSMEs just do not know how to use digital tools, and as such they are afraid to start on that journey. Why many of them have very low levels of education prior to starting businesses, so they are not very keen to learn at this point. We also have the issue of the cost of gadgets, still high. A smartphone still attracts a 10% import duty into Uganda, and 18% VAT. So the cost of a smartphone in this country is still high, comparatively. The East African community has made a resolution that import duty should be removed from all smartphones, but Uganda always requests for exceptions. Uganda argues that they want to start manufacturing mobile phones here, but this will take a long time. Our view is that let the smartphones come in, let them be affordable, let people start using them. In that way, government will collect more revenue in the end. See? So there's still the issue of the cost of the gadget itself. There are infrastructural challenges. There are districts where electricity is more off than on. So for such people, you can't really start telling them to go digital because they are operating in within certain infrastructural constraints. So, and then we have other issues around the cost of data. And then there are people who fear, because digital transformation comes with certain risks. For instance, issues around cybersecurity, online fraud, and so on and so forth. So these are some of the challenges that constrain MSMEs. That said, those MSMEs that have adopted digital tools have seen that their businesses have thrived. How? They have seen that they experience a reduction in transaction costs.
Yes.
They experience increased efficiency. They experience increased profits as a result of adopting these digital tools. And many of them find it easier to communicate and engage with their end customers using platforms like WhatsApp and others. So it's clear that, and also for marketing, increasingly businesses are recognizing that they'll sell more through TikTok, through Instagram, and so on, than a physical shop. You see, so those are, that's basically it, that there's a certain category of businesses that have adopted digital tools and they are experiencing great advantages. There's also a category of businesses that are a bit fearful. Either fearful or the constraints and challenges that I mentioned are holding them back. Yes.
For example, connectivity, just not even having electricity.
Yeah, those are the
those
infrastructure
basics,
challenges
yes.
I talked about.
Okay.
Yes.
So there is an adoption to some level. Then the next step, I guess, would be to accelerate, right? To accelerate the usage, the uptake in some of these areas. What are the trends that you are seeing? Either government interventions or even the business sector coming in to support some of these digital
Okay, in terms of
things?
trends, we are seeing that there's increased adoption of smartphones in Uganda. So Uganda has roughly 20 million smartphones and roughly 32 million legacy phones. So you see that gap. We still have a gap of around 20 million. But there's growth from the smartphone side. And what we've done is to ask government to cut back on the taxes to allow that growth to accelerate. Remove the 10% import duty, remove the VAT on at least entry-level smartphones as a starting point. Now, the other trend is that we are seeing young people innovate and come up with solutions that can ease the life of businesses. So we are seeing innovations around bookkeeping, around payment platforms, around payment collections, and logistics and applications and so on. So there's definitely growth in terms of the solutions and the tools that MSMEs can rely on to run their businesses. What we also see is that connectivity is becoming easier, the cost of broadband is reducing, and also then it means that accessibility is improving and is increasing at the same time. So looking at that broader picture, we are seeing positive growth and development.
I see. So the thing is, young people also really thrive, I think, on this hub culture where they all come together because, you know, they can't, for example, one person can't afford, let's say, to have a brick and mortar store, but they need to store things, or there's a certain skill that when done with a group of other people seem to get them far, like, for example, welding, or if, you know, they work with their hands to get a certain skill across. I wonder, is this, you think, an accelerator in itself, creating these shared hubs where young people can come and actually learn skills?
I mean, it's an interesting proposition, and I know that government has been thinking through ways. The Uganda Communications Commission, NITA Uganda, they all have different initiatives to support MSMEs to adopt, MSMEs and startups. And one of those is around this issue around startup hubs and business innovation hubs and so on. So it's one of the initiatives that can help boost uptake. Also in terms of skilling and just training young people, which kind of tools, how do you use them and so on. Hubs therefore serve as very important catalysts. Yeah, but how do we ensure that the hubs are sustainable?
That's right.
Yeah, who funds them and how do they run? Will the young people pay? You know, are they able to pay and ensure that the hub is run sustainably, or you need some kind of external intervention? You know, so those are things that can be further discussed.
Okay.
Yes.
In this dialogue of digitalization, there's always this shadow of trust or not trust, you know, like, do you trust this world that we're in, this virtual world? Can you talk to us about, you know, I guess addressing those, you know, a lot of SMEs who maybe would like to see business efficiency, but there's a barrier of trust to adopt some of these
Well, the issue is that when businesses go online, the thieves and the fraudsters also go online.
Right.
You know, that's the other thing. We can't say that digital transformation route is full of nice guys, you know, and
Like free of the scammers and
Yeah, so
everyone.
what we see is that the fraudsters are becoming sophisticated.
Oh, wow.
And businesses need to make efforts to improve their competencies in cybersecurity. You know, and they should also know, you know, where do you store passwords and so on. So those basics are extremely important. And they're part of the broader digital literacy agenda. Because if we don't address that, then SMEs will go in and exit because they feel it's too risky. So how do we ensure that we cushion businesses against? I mean, it's not a fight that's an easy one. Yeah, if you look at the cost that corporate companies are paying, even here in Uganda,
Yes.
through cybersecurity threats, it's huge.
Yes.
So for smaller businesses, they're in a more vulnerable position. Their resources are limited.
That's right.
You see, so that's something that.
If our central bank could get hacked, okay, allegedly get hacked, then of course the threat to smaller businesses can also be.
Well, they said they were not hacked.
We'll leave that. But you know, the thing that I also wanted to really discuss is that young people are very enterprising because they come out of universities and they simply cannot get jobs, or they can't get the match of their skill with what is available. So outside of the vulnerabilities, do you feel like these young people, especially these young entrepreneurs, some of them very, very much in the informal sector, are being heard, from a business perspective, also maybe from a policy perspective? Are they being heard, and is the mindset changing overall?
Well, I think they're being heard. Government has prioritized ICT and ICT-based services as key drivers of our growth. If you look at the Vision 2040, the National Development Plan 4, if you look at the National Digital Roadmap, it's very explicit on the role that ICT will play. The Digital Roadmap is also cognizant of the fact that there are barriers and there are policy constraints. And in that document, government commits itself to remove those and to improve the environment in order to ensure that there's greater adoption of digital tools. So I would say that yes, at the government level, we see that there's an understanding of the potential that digital provides for businesses. There is also commitment on their part to ensure that any barriers are removed. But what we also see sometimes is that they are slow in making the necessary policy reforms that are necessary to ensure that there's an acceleration of digital. For instance, I mean, if I were government, there are services that I would ring fence for locals and say, this kind of software can only be developed by local developers. In this way, I can catalyze them, create a market for digital solutions that are local in nature.
That's right.
Because what we also don't want is to simply be a consumer of digital services from abroad. See, we are subscribing for all these kinds of services, software as a service. It's not a bad thing, but it also leaves us vulnerable. And also, unfortunately, our young people who have studied computer science, software engineering, don't have room to innovate and come up with the right solutions. So there's some work to be done at policy level.
So, as we wrap up, there is one area that I really wanted to speak to you about. Oftentimes we think of, business services as, or like, products that can be bought locally, but we're seeing a trend where BPOs are really becoming a strong and viable business, either for the people who are looking in demand for the services, or we who are exporting, the brains behind some of these processes. So can you talk to us a little bit about what the future will be like, you think, in the next 5 years with BPOs in Uganda or in Africa? Because this seems to be like a growing a growing point of view.
Well, there's definitely great potential for the BPO industry because countries that pioneered this, like India, are kind of over time starting to exit that and trying to go into higher level ICT services. So that creates opportunities for countries like Uganda to position themselves. But for that to happen, we must ensure that we have reliable and high-speed internet. And I'm glad that government has been investing in the national backbone. We must also ensure that we have young people who are well-trained who can speak good English, who are ethical, and who are hardworking. And I think there's some work to be done there, because the BPO center will function 24 hours. So you need people who are there in 24 hours to respond to queries and so on. And when we're talking about BPO, we are not going beyond even call centers. We have people, young people here who are doing graphic design, who are doing multimedia stuff. We have young people who are doing bookkeeping, who can help keep records for businesses that are out. We have people who can help in terms of website design and so on. So I think there's need to be more deliberate. I've heard a lot of talk about the BPO industry, but I've not seen actual investments being directed towards this area.
Okay.
And I think there's huge potential for us. We have a young, trainable population. Our young people are very articulate in English, so this is a low-hanging fruit that you can harness.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your comments. There is one more thing that I did want to ask you, though. A lot of, when you talk to young people, especially people who are, in this space of business, they're just starting up, they'll always tell you, oh, the economy is so bad, or, the economy is not supporting us. As a senior economist, frontline, engaging with these small and medium-sized enterprises, how is the economy doing, generally?
The Ugandan economy cannot be divorced from the global economy.
Right.
The global economy is not doing very well. From COVID-19, you see, in fact, what you see in Europe is what we call the cost of living crisis. If you've noticed that there, things are really bad. If you look at the growth rates of these European economies, they're very low. So and then you also have crises. In addition to COVID, you've had the war in Ukraine, you've had the Iranian war. All these disrupt supply chains, undermine confidence in the global economy, and ultimately hurt the consumer. If we look at the Iranian war, for instance, the war between the US and Iran, US, Israel on one side and Iran on the other side, what did it do? It led to a hike in the global price of crude oil. And this led to increases in commodity prices. So if you have industries here that rely on imports, for instance, Uganda is heavily reliant on imports rather, you find that cost has, at the end of the day, to be directed to the consumer.
Yeah.
And then for the central bank, because they have a mandate to fight inflation, what do? They keep the interest rates high. But keeping the interest rates high means that you dampen business activity. Businesses are unable to grow and create jobs. So when people are unemployed, they will complain. There are no jobs. You see how all these things are interrelated, you see? So if a business wants to borrow money from the bank, the interest rate is very high.
Yes.
So they either fail to repay the loan or whatever. So these are the conditions in which we operate. Some of them are global in nature.
Yes.
Some of them are local. Because there are things that government can also do to try to, alleviate these challenges.
Right.
They've tried, programs like the Parish Development Model,
Yes.
the Myoga. They are all aimed at alleviating that pain,
Right.
ensuring that they kind of narrow the gap between the have and the have.
Right.
As to whether these programs are successful, that's something that can be assessed much later.
I see. Okay. Well, I think with that, we can walk away with at least some hope that, people like yourself are on the forefront, at least, of shedding light on some of the challenges small and medium-sized enterprises have, and advocating for them, wherever possible.
Correct.
So thank you so much for
You're
joining
welcome,
us.
and thank you for having me.
Sure. All right. Tiff, we are good to go.